It is my pleasure to introduce our next act. You've already met him, ladies and gentlemen. He's been doing comedy for 12 years. He's performed all over Australia. Recently inducted into the Adelaide Comedy Hall of Fame. He's performing a show called Break the Internet from March 1 at the Rhino Room Beer Garden. And he has, according to his reviews, a fabulous beard. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Jason to the stage. Good on you, mate.
Right, it's good to be here. Here's what normally happens in comedy. This is what I would call a comedy moat. This is where the laughs will get lost. I don't know if they're filming, but if I was to stand here, can you still see me? Yeah. Now I'm closer. I feel like I've always wanted to perform in the round as well. Now, I walk a lot into gigs. I live just like in Norwood, and I love, one of my favourite things is when rich people do dumb things. And I saw a guy on my way to a gig earlier this year. He got out of a very fancy Audi car and he's walked away from it and he's left his lights on, and I just start laughing. I think, this is awesome, sucked in. And he starts walking away. I go, nah, I've got to tell him. I've got to, that's embarrassing for him. So I've run after him. I went, sir. And he's turned around and he's looked at me and he goes, oh, do you need $1? Yes, please. And I said, this must be very embarrassing for you, but I noticed that you just walked away from your car there, the very fancy Audi, and you've left your lights on. I hate for you to, to get back and that not work. And he goes, oh, that's the A4. The lights turn off automatically. And I'm going, oh yeah, that's the A4, of course. Yeah, my car does that too. In fact, if I leave the lights on, just after 2 hours, they'll just gradually fade. So I get to call a complete stranger up afterwards, and they'll come over and jumpstart my car. So anyway, can I possibly have that $1? I used to be a high school teacher. It's something that I did. I did a university degree in that stupid thing at one point. And, sorry, Rich. And when people I'm sure we've got some teachers in tonight. And when people find out that you're a teacher, you always get this response, guarantee. Oh, you're a teacher. Oh, 12 weeks holiday. Or 12 weeks holiday. Right? And do you know how much that hurt? Because that's not true, because I worked in a private school. Sometimes I got 14 weeks. And but what I loved finding out what my kids are passionate about, what they love, and then trying to teach them according to their passions. And I taught mathematics. Not very fun, all right? But I had one kid. He was passionate about the Port Adelaide Football Club. So I thought, right on. So I went, I'm going to teach this kid using the power that is Port Adelaide. Mutually exclusive, right? And so I go, okay, I know how I can win this kid. So I walk in, we're doing the topic of ratio, and I go, how many games have Port played so far this year? And he goes, 6. And I go, that's cool. Let's put that on the board, 6. Now, how many games have they won? And he goes, just 1. I go, that's all right, that's fine. That's a ratio of 1 to 6, you see that? And he goes, oh, yeah. I go, now just imagine if they played 12 games. By this logic, how many games would they win? And for the first time in his life, he's gotten out his calculator and he goes, I can do this. I love maths. I went, slow down. And he starts typing and goes, 1 times 2 equals... And I go, what's the answer? And he goes, 2. I said, no, it's Port Adelaide, still 1. I do a fair lot of gigs and travel. One of my favourite gigs I've ever done was I was emceeing the Arkaba Hotel, and that's where I met a guy called Murray. And I'll never forget Murray because I'm doing my little act, and Murray has come to the front row and he just stood up and he stared at me in silence. And everyone is looking at him going, what's going on with this guy? Now, if you're going to heckle tonight, I don't care if you do. That's cool because I'll rip you down. But the best heckle that you could ever give a comedian is silence. You guys are doing it right now. Well done. But everyone's looking to me to control this. So I went, oh, hello, sir. How are you? He goes, my name is Murray. And I go, "G'day, Murray, but no need to yell." And he goes, "I am deaf!" Okay, probably a good reason to be yelling there, Murray. Now, the reason why he came to the front was so that he could read my lips and enjoy the show. I thought, that's awesome. Everyone deserves comedy. That's so cool. But then I had a little bit of an issue because Murray started to heckle me. And no matter how good and nice a comedian you are, there is no comeback to a deaf heckler. Unless you do this, and that is not fair. But my problem, Murray was getting rounds of applause and big laughs from the audience, and I went, that's just going to be wasted on his deaf ears. And but we had a break, and I followed Murray outside, and he went out onto the patio thing, and he starts rolling like this weird shaped cigarette, and he has a couple of puffs on it, or tokes, if you will, and I then noticed like his eyes are really bloodshot red now, and he's walked back in and he's got a couple of packets of chips under his arms, and he's walked back in and he's gone, "I'm back!" And I went, "Yeah, great," because before I was dealing with standard def, now I'm dealing with high def, right? And we'll finish on this. Just a couple of months ago, I was in Perth, and that's all my family are from there. I was visiting family, doing gigs over there, and I was due to fly back to Adelaide, and like the last flight you get is like at 5 p.m. because Perth has a curfew, and also Adelaide you're not allowed to get here after 11 p.m. because Adelaide gets sad, or and so I've rocked up for my flight. I'm all checked in, booked in. I've checked in 48 hours ahead. This is what you do after a while. You just always know to check in early. And I've gone to get onto my plane, and my plane doesn't exist. And I went, "Sorry, Virgin Airlines, where's my plane?" And they go, "Oh, we cancelled that flight yesterday." And I went, "No, you didn't. I've still got it." And they go, "Oh, we didn't tell you?" And I went, "No." And I go, "Well, what do I do?" And they go, "Oh, go downstairs and we'll organise something for you." So I've gone downstairs, and it's just me, and I go up to the counter, and I went, "Look, I don't know how this happened, but look, what can you do for me?" And the guy starts typing in the computer, and he goes, "Look, what we can do, we can put you on a plane tonight to Melbourne through the night. We can land you in Melbourne, fly back from Melbourne to Adelaide, and we'll have you at work at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning. How about that?" And I was like, I don't work. Next. He goes, "Well, because it's our fault, what I guess I'm going to have to do, we're going to put you up in a hotel." And I've just gone, "A hotel? That sounds expensive." He goes, "No, it's our fault, and look, the best that we can do at the moment is the Perth Hyatt." And I've gone, "The Perth Hyatt? That seems heaps far away." "I'll start walking now, okay?" And he goes, no, it's our fault. So look, here's a cab charge. Just, give it to the taxi driver, and he'll take you to the Perth Hyatt. And so I've been given a blank cab charge. And so I've walked out of the airport at 5 p.m. and I've gone into the taxi, and I go, "G'day, mate, how are you?" And he goes, "Andy's having a very bad day." And I went, "Oh, no, Andy, that's no good." And he goes, "Andy has had many fare evaders." And I went, "Well, Andy, today's your lucky day." I've got 4 hours to kill, and this cab charge, courtesy of Virgin Airlines. Let's drive. We went down to the edge of the Indian Ocean. We watched the sunset. It was magical. We went to Kings Park. We had a picnic. We were then driving along the Mitchell Freeway, and for those of you from Adelaide who don't know what a freeway is, it's when cars go in opposite directions at high speed. It's quite amazing technology. And but then at one point, Andy goes to change gears, and our hands met on the gear stick. I looked at him and I went, "We can go on forever." And he goes, "No, I've got family." And so he's dropped me off at the Perth Hyatt, and I just immediately turned to a big cliche. I don't get to stay in many 5-star hotels. doing the comedy, and so I just start jumping on the bed. I've got the little shampoos, and I just start piffing them out onto the road, and I order room service. I found out I got $50 voucher for it, and so I order the Margaret River aged T-bone 24-day rump steak. Get that delivered, bang. And they go, where do you want it? I go, on my bed. So I'm jumping on my bed, eating steak, going, this is incredible. The next morning, they said I'd be getting picked up at 7 a.m. In a shuttle bus. And I was like, a shuttle bus? That is not the life I'm accustomed to. I've gone down, it's got to 7:05, no shuttle bus. I've gone back to the concierge and I went, look, I'm going to miss another flight, what's going on? And then all of a sudden, a limo rocks up. Guy gets out and he's gone, and he's got Mr. Pestel and a bit of card. And I went, well, that's my dad. He goes, no. And I go, oh. And so I've got to go and sat in the front seat. And he goes, no, you're in a limo. You do what you want. And I was like, okay. Can I go through the sunroof? And he goes, of course. And I was like, I'm the king of Perth. So I get into the limo, drops me off. I check in. I go to my seat, and as if my last 24 hours could not have been any worse. There's a guy sitting in my chair, and I've gone, sir, you won't believe. Look, can you just move over, please? You're in my chair. And he goes, oh, sorry. And he's moved over, and he's got a really thick Scottish accent. He's got like an eye patch, and he's got like really ripped jeans, and he's dressed very similar to 5 other dudes around him. And I went, oh, are you like in some sort of rock and roll band? He goes, yes, I am. I'm in Scotland's premier pirate metal band. We're called Ailstorm. And I've gone, pirate metal? Like, how does that work? Yo-ho-ho and a bottle of rum. He goes, oh, you've heard of us? I went, no. I was guessing. I look him up on my phone just before the plane's back to take. They've got like 5 million hits on YouTube, like quite. And we're talking, I learnt in that 2.5-hour flight back all about pirate metal. And so after about 5 minutes, I then started doing my Sudoku. But like, then after 1.5 hours, the captain's come on and goes, we're about to approach Adelaide, so buckle up and we'll fly in. And I was like, well, that's really weird. Normally this takes about 2.5 hours. Maybe had a really strong Freo doctor. That's cool. And we start descending out of the clouds, and I can see some lights on, and I go, well, that must be Adelaide. And then suddenly we pick up speed and we go up again, and we go through the clouds, and everyone's looking around and kind of looking at me as the bearded brown dude. And I'm going, what's going on? What's going on? And then the captain has come on, and you cannot make this up. He's going, oh, I'm totes sorry. I've actually got my watch set to Melbourne time, and I've almost landed in Ceduna. It's Virgin Airlines, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for having me. I've been Jason Pestel. Cheers.
Thanks very much, Jason. If I can get the rest of the panel back up again, that'd be great. As is my wont, I like to watch YouTube clips, and I especially like how I'll start, looking for something in particular, and then in the great wheel of YouTube fortune, I end up watching stand-up comedy and just random things. One of the things I came across was an episode of The Green Room, where a group of comedians will sit around and they talk about comedy. It's lots of fun. And I saw Tim Minchin, Jimmy Carr, and some other comedians, and they were talking about the limits of comedy. And they were asking the question of, like, can it go too far? What are the limits? Now, if you know Tim Minchin and especially Jimmy Carr, you'll know they don't really seem to have limits. And they made the argument that, no, everything is up for a joke. You can make a joke about anything and everything. They didn't even limit race, sex, and things like that. It was all up for grabs. Chris, are there any topics that you think are off limits in stand-up? Now, you don't need to, yes, there's this, and like name everything that you won't make a joke about, but how do you determine where that line is for you?
As you could all tell from my set, I go pretty hard. And, but I think David Caruso is too far, and I'm going to cut that joke from the set from now on. I think, yeah, it's weird for a comedian who's basically clean and slightly odd to probably say this, but I think, yeah, comedy is really about, it sort of stands on that free speech kind of bastion, and I think the ability for someone to get up and say absolutely anything is a pretty amazing thing to have in our, I guess, Western culture. Unfortunately, Australia does not seem to be born on that foundation of free speech above all, even though we like to think that. That's America, which we often forget that we're not America. But I think it's really important for people in a society, a free society, to be able to say about anything they want. It's just, yeah, and it's also very right for audiences to just go, nah, and walk away, or not applaud or not laugh at the same time. I think, yeah, I'm a big believer in the voting with your feet or with your silence and that kind of thing. And clearly, I think my set showed that.
All right, Jason, a question for you. Looking at, I Googled you and I found your poster. And some people in the front can see this. I'm sorry, everyone.
I've got A0s if you want.
It's, I gotta say, it's pretty handsome. This is your poster for Break the Internet.
Everyone will get one.
I think you are going to break the internet. Yeah, there you go. Oh, I'm so glad you've got one for everyone. Are there things that you won't joke about, and how do you determine what the line? We're just moving on. We're just moving straight along.
So, I think a good comic knows where that line is most of the time. A really, really good comic knows where the line is and still crosses it, because sometimes it needs to be crossed, but also can then bring you back to that line and keep you there. And I think that's what a good comic. I go to a lot of open mics, so I see young comics who see their heroes deal with race or some topics, and like just a month ago, did an open mic, I did a transgender joke. Wasn't very funny, wasn't even funny really, but some guy then grabbed him at the end and starts bashing him, goes, "You can't make jokes about transgender." And I went, "You can't bash people based on how they talk. You know, no one's going to win in this situation." And so pushed him aside and went, "You go this way, you go that way." But a good comic knows that line. And, you know, the amount of times I learn a lot by watching, like, good comics. I love Ricky Gervais. I love how he pushes it, brings it back, and there are some really solid points to what he talks about, and makes fun of religion, because at times it so needs to be made fun of, because it is dumb at times. It is stupid, and that needs to cross that line to then bring it back.
All right. For the two of you with your set, knowing that, I guess, do you ever hesitate in inviting people to your show, especially if...
Yeah, that's how you make money.
Yeah. And I'm thinking, like, I guess I'm thinking, I know as an actor, there's been times, you know, I like to promote the stuff that I'm doing and, you know, get up at church and say, "Hey, come and see a show." You know, there have been times when I did a dark comedy last year at the Fringe, and I sort of thought, I'm not sure this is really something that I want to promote at church. And I kind of hesitated, not because I was ashamed of the show, but just because I wasn't sure that people would take it in the right light. Is that ever a thing that you worry about or struggle with?
Well, thanks to the internet, I have everyone's opinions. And, like, sometimes I'll do jokes which I think are pure innocent, and then someone will write to me, you know, after the gig, or they won't approach me. They'll, you know, just on the, you know, YouTube comments or something, and say how I was offensive and how I shouldn't be doing that, and how I don't belong in a church, like, or how can I do that, and which I find funny. I'll screenshot that stuff and keep it in a folder. But sometimes there are some valid points, and I will then enter into a discussion. I go, "Why were you offended? Why is that?" Because most of the time, what I do is not really that offensive, and this is my trick. Because I try to not be offensive, it lets me get away with so much. Like, it's the opposite of being, like, there's offensive comedians now. I've gone the totally opposite, going, "Hello, and it lets me do so much with that.
Yep.
But you do get labelled as a clean comic, and I hate that. Like I've done, like when they go, "This is a Christian comedian," I go, "Well, I'm a Christian plumber as well. That's what I do." Like it doesn't, describe. I'm a Christian by label, I guess, but it doesn't. You know, I wear that on the inside far more than kind of how I do it, and I hope it speaks through my comedy implicitly. Like it doesn't. I don't come out and go.
Yeah. How about you, Chris?
For myself, I think, inviting different Christians, really. I'm only actually ever worried about inviting Christians. I'm not really worried about any other demographic of people. Not to my own shows, my solo fringe shows and that kind of thing. Although some shows like Wolf Creek, the musical, by nature of the thing it was parodying, did involve some pretty horrific scenes. I don't know if anyone here has actually seen Wolf Creek the musical. Did anyone see Wolf Creek the musical when we were doing it? Yeah, there's one person. Good show. You get some songs stuck in your head that you think, I don't want to be thinking that at the time.
Yeah, sure.
So I think, there's passages, I think, in 1 Corinthians that teach us about the weaker brother or sister, and just basically trying to shield them from making a mistake in their own minds that will trip them up themselves, which I think is important. So inviting people to a standard comedy night, just try to make sure that the type of people that I'm inviting are ready for what goes on a normal stand-up comedy night. Thick skins is basically all I ask, especially of Christians. And as Jason said, I think Christians very often need to be made fun of in some ways. It helps us to be a little bit more humble, which is the number one thing that comedy can do. Is it humbles us. It humbles the proud, I think, and it tears down those sort of high status individuals and people, and
Evens the playing field.
It does.
Right? Yeah. Everyone is up for grabs, if you like. So yeah. There's no one can hide. I'm going to throw to you, Sam. Do you think, as our resident theologian, do you think there's anything that God would say, no, that's not funny, like that's out of line right there?
Right. Well, I think the premise behind humour is that words have power. And so in philosophy, they talk about speech-act theory, and no word is a neutral word. When we use words, we're not just putting information out there. Words actually have power, and they actually affect things, and they actually change the world. So, for example, we've got 3 kids, and the hardest thing about having a kid is working out what to name your kid. Every parent's juggling that game where you don't want a name so common, like John, Andrew, or Peter,
Sam.
Boring, or Sam, but then you don't want a name so funky like Matthew or 3 T's and a silent Q. Now the poor kid needs therapy. So you want that name that's just right, just in the middle. So my name, Sam, is a top 10 name now, a top 10 dog name. So we went through dog names. And number 1 dog name and human name that year where we had our first kid was Jack. But then my last name's Chan, so we can't call him...
Good pickup.
Yes, that's
Good
right.
pickup.
But anyway, so words have power. So when you name a kid, that actually has power. That kid now has a name. At your wedding, when you say, I do, that's got power. So 10 years later, you think, how did I end up with this person next to me? That's right. I said, I do. So words have power and consequences. So they affect change into the world. And that's the whole thing with humour. Words actually have power to either build up or tear down, to entertain or to hurt. And we talk about, there is that fine line between tragedy, which hurts, or comedy, which makes you laugh. And words can hurt. And we all know they're words we just know we should never use. And maybe jokes are the same. There's some jokes that actually hurt. They're actually not funny anymore. But some jokes that are funny. And there's also a fine line. And this is where humour is that delicate art rather than a science. Is this respectful or is it disrespectful? And I think that's that fine line. And even the Bible says, as you grow up a bit more mature, you suddenly realise some jokes aren't that funny. And think, well, why aren't they funny? And I suddenly realise they're actually disrespecting God. So there's a moment where you've just crossed the line and you're disrespecting God. And we understand, there's certain jokes right now. You cannot make jokes for some reason about minority groups because that's disrespectful, but you can make jokes about majority groups and somehow that's not disrespectful. But so we understand respect's a big part of the way we use words. And I think, and so we have to respect God and His creation, as well as take the mickey out of God and His creation. So it's a fine line.
Yeah, okay. That thanks for that. I like that. Yeah, you know, maybe some jokes, if they only hurt and are only disrespectful and sort of tear people down, and maybe that's why, like Jason, you said, a good comic can walk that line. You know, like, so a good comic like Ricky Gervais can say potentially, you know, things that are out of line, but he does it well. And so maybe that's why, you know, he gets away with it. But I want to pick up on this idea of joking about God, making jokes about God. It seems to me like that's fair game now, and I think sometimes seems to be an easy gag. Jokes about God or jokes about Christians seem to me that almost a line that a comic will pull out and say, you know, I was talking to someone, a Christian, and there'll be automatically this sort of laugh through an audience. Maybe it's what used to be a blonde joke, you know, is now the Christian joke. Why do you think jokes about God are funny? And do you think it's right that we do find them funny? Or are they not funny? Maybe it's just me.
Sometimes when I hear those jokes, I nod and I go, that's true, what they're saying, and their experience, that's why they're saying it. And I find myself laughing along to that, and I go, if they only knew a bit more of this, like prayer circles and other things, and like things that I find like going, oh, you know, that are so constructed that you need that rules and stuff, and I go, I don't want rules, man. And but Chesterton said a good religion can laugh at itself, and can be made fun of. And so I'm not scared when people pay out, because I go, it can speak for itself. It doesn't. It can be offended, but it's the gospel. It's not going to, it's actually going to fix this eventually.
Mm. So throw whatever you want at it. It's still going to be standing at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Okay. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, I think the bigger a thing is, the more shared the experience is, then the more we can actually share in our laughter about it. And so if we're talking about the biggest thing of all, which is God, then in fact it should be the most shared experience. It should be the thing that we can most have joy in, and also the most indestructible to any kind of attitudes or thoughts or words that we say as well. I think it was Chesterton who said...
There's a theme.
Looked at the same things.
GK, old mate GK.
Old GK, yeah. Peace out.
Go with,
GK.
go with your Colbert.
He said, GK said, is a good buddy. He said, germs are not funny, they are small. And they're not funny because they can kill you, but then the entire world is very funny and is full of funny things because it's alive and it gives life. I think that's a thing that's not... don't worry about it. Basically, if you have a good Christian faith and someone's up there shouting at God and people are laughing at that, just go, well, good, but it's not really going to hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah, talking about him, yeah.
Getting on the agenda. C.S. Lewis, who wrote the Chronicles of Narnia, also wrote a great book, the Screw Tape Letters, and it's a satirical perspective on a demon in training and how he's going to torment people. And it's very good. It's very, very funny. In the epigraph, C.S. Lewis has this: the best way to drive out the devil, if he will not yield to texts of Scripture, is to jeer and flout him, for he cannot bear scorn. That's a quote from Martin Luther. And another quote that he has is, the devil, the proud spirit, cannot endure to be mocked. Thomas More. Sam, do you think that making a joke about something that is bad, evil, or scary disarms that thing? And do you think that's why we like to make jokes about things that, we are afraid of or that we're fearful about?
Wow, yeah, I guess it gives us that critical distance and maybe we see things for what they are. But I was thinking, still going back to that, Christians being the punchline of a joke.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a bad thing because it keeps us humble. And it helps us then to have that critical distance where we examine ourselves. Okay, why are they making these generalizations about us? But also a big premise of the Bible is God saves us, not because we were good, strong, or mighty. So there's Paul, one of the original followers of Jesus, says to the followers, hey, don't think that God saved you or chose you because you were strong. Actually, you were weak. Don't think he chose you because you were wise. You're actually foolish. In fact, God chose you because you were foolish. In other words, you guys were the punchline of a joke. And that's why God saves you. And I think it's good to keep us humble. Hey, we are the punchline of a joke. And it's not because of how strong or mighty or wise we are that God saves us. It's purely just because God loves us.
Very good. Jason, you're either checking your texts or you've got something there.
No, I clocked it. I'm just on my phone.
Catching up on emails.
One of my favourite preachers is a guy called Tim Keller. I love reading him. And one of my favourite things that he wrote was, we find a lot to laugh at, starting with our own weaknesses. The gospel, however, creates a great sense of irony. We find a lot to laugh at, starting with our own weaknesses. They don't threaten us anymore because our ultimate worth is not based on our record or performance. And that's why I love doing self-deprecation stuff about making fun of when things happen to me and they've been bad. The only way I can get power back is to make fun of it and bring it back. And that's gospel as well.
Yeah, that's really great. I like that. We're getting close to the end of the night, so I want to ask you a couple of questions. What makes you laugh the most? What is the thing that every time will just get you going? As inspiration comes, answer. But you can all answer that one. You go.
For me, it's observational humour, and they've studied humour, and they found out, once upon a time that our dads, so the dad jokes, they're very punchline dependent jokes, boom, boom, boom. Shh. But now we've moved to observational humour, and it just works from people telling stories from their lives. And at that moment, there's this empathetic moment where we nod our heads and go, yep, that's happened to me as well. And somehow that shared experience becomes funny. So one time I had to speak at a retirement village, and I thought, I've got nothing in common with these 80-year-olds. So I got up, and my first line was, I just had a colonoscopy last week. And bang, everyone's laughing because it's a shared experience. And another time, I had to get up and speak in front of all these retired men, and I said, hey, I just turned 40, and the first thing you notice, you still got the brain of an 8-year-old trapped in a 40-year-old's body, but one thing has changed is your bladder. I just can't hold it like I used to. And I said, now I go on the hour, not because I have to, but in case I have to. and then suddenly it's a shared experience. Everyone gets it. And then I shared with someone else, we've got 3 kids now, so I'm thinking it's time. I got the snip. So I actually bumped into a urology friend, a surgeon who does a snip. I said, oh, Howard, do you remember me? He goes, yes, Sam, of course I remember you. I said, oh, Howard, I need to see you. And he just stopped me. Anytime an old friend says, I need to see you, I know exactly what they're asking for. I look at their birth date. If they're 40, they need the vasectomy. If they're 50, they need the reversal because they've met someone else. And if they're 60, they need their prostate done. So again, it's a shared experience. I think that's what makes me laugh. Just a shared experience. Yep, you're in my world, I've been there, and you're in my world as well.
Well, thank you for oversharing. That's great. So thank you very much. Jason, what makes you laugh?
It is farts. Farts.
Farts every time.
I can't. There was on YouTube. There was a little like 4-month-old kid that just farts and then you went, and I watched that 30 times in a row because there was pure joy on her face. And I, just on the way here, I was talking with other comics, and we'd clean this up, we'd call them poo stories, like just where have you crapped yourself the worst place? And one of mine was on the way up to speaking up at Harndorf, and it just, and I just had to go, and then I just ran into a bush, and then I couldn't find any paper except posters of my Fringe show, and so I ripped my name off so it couldn't be traced back. Any evidence. I find that funny because I think everyone shared experience, someone somewhere right now has just shat themselves as well.
Good. I'm writing that down. That's good. Yeah.
Can't believe Jason beat me to it. I think comedy, the things that just make me laugh so much that I'm crying, they just take me by surprise each time. I don't know exactly what it's going to be. There's no way to predict it. Just something funny, whether it's an animal on YouTube doing a silly dance or, but it's just a wonder or a fart, of course. So my sister did an accidental audible fart. She was going for a silent one. And this was just yesterday. It was great. And this was in front of my wife, who, they don't really know each other very well, but suddenly they did.
Yeah.
Very, very well. And it was a great moment, and it did bring tears to everyone's eyes, I think. The quote from Colbert, Stephen Colbert, who's now hosting the late night show, basically said he had this taped to his computer so he'd see it every single time that he went to write some good jokes. He would see this written. It would say, "Joy is the most infallible proof that God exists." And I think that's he came up with that quote. I think it's great. It's not from the Bible really, but if we could add an apocrypha, we could chuck that in.
I just like that he's got his own quote up. Like it's just a quote I love. It's mine. You've got to be pretty good.
I've got a whole book of them. It's what comedians are all about.
You've got to be pretty good to do that. All right, we've got just a tiny little bit of time for some questions. What is the funniest thing that God has done to you or you have seen happen in your life? So what's the funniest thing that
I'm
God
a
has
home
done to you?
brewer because I lived in America for a while and I loved all the microbrews they had in America. So I came back to Australia. This is like 10 years ago, before the microbrewery movement set off here. And so then I thought I need to recreate a Sam Adams, which is now available here, but 10 years ago you couldn't get a Sam Adams. So I'm in this small suburban home brew shop in the middle of nowhere in Sydney, and I'm standing behind the counter, and then the guy says, I go to the counter, the guy behind the counter says, "Can I help you?" So, I need these hops and this malt because I'm trying to recreate a Sam Adams beer. And the guy behind the counter just is looking at me blankly, and at that moment I'm thinking to myself, "You idiot, why are you even sharing that? This guy has no idea what a Sam Adams beer is." And then the man behind me in an American accent said, "I used to brew for Sam Adams, and this is the recipe." And I thought, wow. So that's got me believing in an interventionist personal God of this universe.
Forget joy.
Yeah.
Beer is the answer. Jason, funniest thing God's ever done for you?
I'm still trying to think.
Okay.
Look, there's just so many things I think that are just ridiculous about our ordinary daily lives. I think that it would be great. There's a kind of weird theology that I don't think is correct. That when you die, God sort of puts a big screen up and just watches your whole life. And I think there's little moments there that no one ever saw of my life. That if God's sitting there watching, he'd go, "That's a good one. That's great." Probably the time like that I was completely alone in the woods at a camp, and I suddenly really needed to go to the toilet. And
we're back here again. We're back here again.
And I was like, "Oh boy, I got to get there really quickly." So I started running, and then found a clothesline. And by found a clothesline, I got hit in the neck with the clothesline. But I was running so fast, but I somehow reacted quickly enough that it didn't hurt me by flinging my head backwards, which caused me to fall flat on my back. And this is a camp full of kids who would, undoubtedly love to point and laugh at such a moment. There was no one around. And I was like, this is clearly a funny moment just for me and God. I think that's the only person who's laughing right now. It was like, good one.
My situation now, I'm like 35 apparently, and for the last 6 years I lived with the promoter of Adelaide Comedy, and we housed so many different comedians. So every week I'd have someone come in and I'd get to learn and watch how they act, and I just find that there'd be times where, and I'd check my watch and it's 4 a.m. and I have to be teaching at 7, you know, and those times where I just go, this is going to be funny tomorrow. But just the experiences that I got through that and the friendships that I made, like where everyone comes, even now I've got a little 2-bedroom, I've got 3 comics staying with me during the Fringe because they want to stay. They know that I've got Netflix on tap. And like,
that's it.
You know, they know that, you know, it's going to be, we're going to have fun. Like, and I just find that amusing at times, especially when I have to work the next day.
That's great. Okay, last question. We'll wrap up on this one. What do you think makes God laugh? What do you think brings him the most joy, apart from that private moment with the clothesline?
There's the old joke that says, if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans.
Yeah.
It's a pretty old one. I think, yeah, the idea of a sense of humour of God himself is something really strange because, you know, we believe he's omniscient. He knows everything. And if comedy often works on a surprise, suddenly a third thing being unlike the first 2 things, then I think, you know, maybe we can't make God laugh in the conventional sense. But then there's other... I heard it. Every single one.
Halfway through, yeah, I know that one. Yeah, I know that one. Next.
But I think that there's different... I mean, I watch comedians do jokes that I've heard tons and tons of time, and there's something very joyful in seeing it with other people and experiencing their shared joy and laughing at that joke that you've heard so many times. I think it's what makes a long-running show actually survivable, is being able to laugh at the same joke night after night, even if it's your own joke and you're just laughing to yourself. It's often there, and the 3 people in the front aren't. That kind of thing really helps you get through it. I think that God perhaps laughs at our silliness, at our foibles, at our own kind of ineptitude, but also in a kind of joyful way. I think he laughs at the way that we don't know how things are going to work together for good. But he knows that it's going to, and he's just sort of going, oh, I'll wait and see. It's going to be great. Yeah, I think that brings him joy.
Cool. Jace?
Really trying to think of this one. I think it's in Magician's Nephew where the hyena's laughing, and he makes other of the animals laugh. And he's like going, why are you laughing? Like, did I just create the first joke? And then Aslan would say, no, you are the joke. That's why they're laughing. That's, you know, and I think that's what I think sometimes God would look at us and our plans and go, good one. I've got something way better, or just wait it out. Like comedy's about timing, so just, you know, there's going to be a big finish.
Yeah.
You know?
I like that.
So, yeah.
Sam?
Well, Sophie Scott, who's a neuroscientist, she just gave a TED talk on laughter, the science of laughter, and she says you're 30 times more likely to laugh at something if you're with someone rather than if you're alone, especially that someone you know, trust, and respect. So comedy, again, is all about a shared experience. And it's got to be with people we know and trust. So I used to, every now and then people ask me to speak in high school chapels, and high school chapels are the worst because you just see the top of 600 heads.
That's my job. That's my job. That's
your
what
job.
I do.
No one's looking at you. You say something funny and they want to laugh, but they look at the person next to them. Oh, he's not laughing, so I'm not going to laugh as well, because that will show they respect you. So it's actually a sign of respect. So I always tell, people who do high school ministry, be encouraged. High schoolers, they're well trained. They look like they're not paying attention, but they are. Whereas adult ministry is the opposite. They look like they're paying attention, but they're not. They're well trained.
Yeah.
They're looking at you, but their brains are elsewhere. They're doing something else. And you think about the things that we enjoy in life, like eating a good meal, maybe watching a movie or travel. They're only fun if you're with someone. They're actually not very fun if you're alone watching a movie, eating a meal, or traveling. And if we do happen to be alone, we take selfies and pictures of the food and we upload on Facebook and Instagram. So it's a shared experience. We need to be with people. I remember I was traveling by myself once in America, so I went to a stand-up comedy act, and I was there by myself. It was actually miserable. It was actually empty and lonely. So it's almost like the search for laughter. It's a search out of emptiness and loneliness because we're after shared experience. And a big premise of the Christian message is we can have a shared experience with God because God doesn't stay up there in heaven far away from us. He actually comes down to us. And so he sends Jesus, God, to be with us. And one of the names we're told to call Jesus is Emmanuel, God with us. So God actually wants a shared experience with us. And another bit in the Bible says Jesus is like a brother, a co-heir with us, and it actually says he has shared our experiences. He's cried our tears. He's been hurt in the same tragedies we've been hurt in, and as he's laughed our laughs. We actually have a shared experience with Jesus and a shared experience with God. So it's almost like the search for laughter is a search for a shared experience, and I would say it's a search ultimately for God. Without God, we stay empty and lonely. That loneliness you get when you eat by yourself, watch a movie by yourself, or travel by yourself. And so the search for laughter and pleasure is a search for God, and ultimately it's actually a search for Jesus, someone to share the experience with, and a chance to share the experience with God.
Yeah, good one. Thank you very much, guys. It's been a real pleasure to share the stage with you. Ladies and gentlemen, we do want to encourage you to continue having conversation with each other. I think we've given you some pretty good starters. Shared experience is what this is all about, so please feel free talk to each other about your vasectomies, prostates, poo stories, and other things that surprise you. But also maybe, if you dare, talk about some of the other things that we've raised about who is God, what is his character like. Do you think God delights in the unexpected things in your life? Do you think he takes delight in seeing you when you garrot yourself on a clothesline? Do you think God takes joy in your life and watching that play out as he plans it? But ladies and gentlemen, we do hope that you've had a really great night once you put your hands together for our panel here. Thank you, Chris, Jason and Sam.